listeners. Welcome to another episode of Romance Unraveled. This is one of your co hosts, Jacob Bozen. And for the month of July, we have a new co host. It's one of my good friends from volleyball. His name is Nick Todorov. And we've known each other for, I would say, maybe a year and a half now. But yeah, Nick, let's just have you introduce yourself.
Yeah, no problem. Like Jacob said, him and I met during volleyball, I guess a couple years ago at this point. I don't remember how long you've been in the DC area, but I've been around the DC area for almost 10 years, going on, what am I, 32 years old in the DC area. Uh, Job, just an accountant. You could think about that however you want. But yeah, this should be an interesting story to tell today.
Yeah, and I have no idea what it is, so it's going to be one of his stories. So yeah, let's jump right into it.
Yeah, so this story starts at the end of my junior year in college, which, now that I think about that over 10 years ago, I'm like, I'm getting really old. But uh, it is a story that sticks out in my mind because it is the quintessential of you can't trust people. So I had met this person when I was up at Penn State, and it originally was just supposed to be a casual type of hookup thing. We had met, hung out for a little bit, really enjoyed each other. So this was at the end of my junior year. So
How did you meet him?
things,
Was it online?
it was on Grindr.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
yeah, the typical. So it really wasn't supposed to be anything serious, but we ended up enjoying each other's company. He told me his name was Andrew, which will be important a little bit later on in the story.
Okay.
But as we were talking over the next couple of weeks, I was then back home, you know, in the Philly area where he also lived. And as I was saying, we kept in contact, wanted to meet again, wanted to hang out again. So one night he invited me over to his house, which at the time he lived on the other side of the river in Jersey, so right outside of Philly. And the one thing that I found a bit weirder that night is he had a very nice house. Probably at that time he was in his mid to late 20s. So maybe 6, 7, 8 years older than me, not too much older, but really, really nice house. But
Okay.
you never know someone's story. And he was telling me how he was a lawyer, worked up in the area where my parents live. So he was familiar with a lot of the area. But it was strange the entire night because he just felt like he was on edge. And I kept on kind of asking him, like, are you okay? Like, you seem really nervous. Are you all right? He just was very kind of uptight about the whole thing.
Just about like having you there or about what he told you, or was this like one of his first experiences that he had?
No, so it definitely wasn't a first experience. It will later to be that it was because I was there, but what he was telling me was that he was under investigation by the FBI. And so he was just on edge because he could get like raided or whatever at any moment. And that's
What?
why he was like super uptight. Yeah.
So he told
So,
you that this same night that you were there.
oh yeah. Yeah.
And
Because
did
I'm
you
just like, this is very strange. And I had stayed the night there. And so, like, throughout the night and kind of leading into the beginning of the night, kept on asking that same question, like, are you sure? Are you sure? And you know me, I'm a very blunt person. I ask questions. I really don't care if someone is uncomfortable with a certain question.
right.
And also, when you're in someone else's home and they're the uncomfortable one, you want to make sure it's not because of you.
So
So,
my question is like, why didn't you leave? What, like if you knew that that was a problem, like why didn't you?
in my mind, I was going into the summer right before my senior year, so I was going to be leaving to go down to the DC area to intern at the company that I kind of currently work at now. And so for me, it was just something fun. We were both attracted to each other. We liked talking to each other. It was one of those things where there was no pressure. We were enjoying each other's company, kind of seeing what came out of
Ooh.
the interaction.
I would have been out of there like a bat out of hell. Like that.
I love making really bad decisions because then you get good stories like these, right?
You're right.
So so then the next morning comes, I end up obviously leaving, everything was fine, not a big deal. So like I said, a couple of weeks later, I had moved down to the DC area for my internship over the summer. Him and I kept in contact, still talking about how we wanted to meet up and hang out and continue to talk, which for me, I still really enjoyed him. We had a good conversation. We had a really good connection. So I was like, yeah, let's go. So there was one weekend, I think a few weeks into my internship, him and I had planned for me to come up to Philly. And at this point, he had moved into an apartment in like the neighborhood of Philly. So I think I took like the bus up from DC because I didn't want to drive. And he picks me up at the bus station. And as we're walking back to his apartment, one of his friends see him on the street and goes, "Hey, Bryce." And I don't know what they said after that because the entire time I'm sitting there, I'm like, he told me his name was Andrew.
Yeah.
So who's Bryce? And the moment the conversation ended between him and his friends, I turned to him. I'm like, "Oh, hey, Bryce, how are you?" And he looks at me like, what are you talking about?" I'm like, "You know me. You know you told me your name was Andrew." And he's like, "Oh yeah, that's just a name that I tell people when I first meet them." And I'm like, "Yeah, well, it would have been a good thing to kind of tell me afterwards after we've been talking for a while." So
Right.
I had planned to kind of stay, what was it? I think it was like, yeah, the whole weekend. So I was leaving Sunday to go back, got there, I think Friday night or Friday after work. And then all day Saturday, we were hanging out. And then Sunday, I was heading back to the DC area.
So
So,
during this entire time, he's still under FBI investigation, right?
uh, that's in reality, no.
Okay.
So,
Okay. So I'll let you tell it. Okay.
yeah. So in reality, no. So I'm now grilling him. I'm like, "Okay, so tell me your whole name." And I forget I won't, I, I remember his entire name, but I can't and I won't say it, but I can't remember the name he kept on telling me it was his last name. But you know, when you get that gut feeling of clearly I'm not going to trust anything that you're telling me right now.
Yeah.
So I didn't. So when he went to the bathroom, I was in his apartment. I just went to his wallet and looked for his ID to get his full name and then put it as like a note in my phone to remember it for later, like a good person, you know? So
Smart.
yeah. And then I kind of kept on teasing him the rest of the weekend of like, "Hey, I know your last name's not what you keep telling me it is. I don't know why you keep lying to me." All this stuff, right? So that weekend, we actually had a good weekend. We were hanging out. Uh, there was, what was it? I think it was like a Saturday morning or a Sunday morning. We did brunch. And like the biggest regret that I get was not getting the name of this brunch place that was in Philly because it was really delicious. And so afterwards, like, obviously, as we get to the end of the story, wasn't going to ask him, "Hey, by the way, what was that brunch place?" But by the time that I'm leaving Philly to head back to DC, obviously I just had this gut feeling that he's just lying to me about everything. He's still on the story that he's a lawyer and that, yes, he's under investigation. I asked him all these questions of like, "So why did you move into Philly? You had this really nice place. Like, what is going on here?"
So
And
what about him was so captivating? Because I can kind of imagine what was going through your head at the time. Like it seemed like it was almost like a tug of war, where you're like, you know that he's lying, but there's just something about him that keeps reeling you in. What, like, was he just super attractive, or what was that?
okay, he was like moderately attractive, but when you are what, 19, I think I was 20 years old at the point, maybe 21, I forget, maybe I was 21. Like all those kind of new things, especially when someone's taking you out, like to me, I just wanted to enjoy the experience. I enjoyed his company. In my head, it was more of like, okay, now there's this mystery I need to solve. Obviously,
Okay.
significant trust issues. So it wasn't going to be a scenario where I was like, oh, yeah, this is going to progress into something serious. It's now kind of turned into like a mystery for me to solve. And I'm just going to enjoy the ride that I'm on at the time.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that makes
Also,
sense.
I'm not going to, rock the boat too much considering I don't have a ticket out until a couple of days.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so let's go back to when you were, I guess, grilling him.
Yeah, so I can't remember all the details because it was a long time ago. Of like all I remember was he was doubling down on the original story that he told me. So then I come back to DC and it's still kind of bothering me. So I go online to like look on to doing background checks. And I looked at a few websites and I remember the first website I went on, it was like $20 for a background check. And I'm like, when you're a broke college student, like $20 seems like $1,000. So
Yeah,
I was
for
like, that's
sure.
too rich for my blood. And it was funny because I kept on clicking out and it's like, hey, the deal went down to $10. And I was like, oh, this is interesting, but you know, I'm not going to spend $10. So then it went down to like $5. And I'm like, you know what? Let me do this for $5. Like I said at the top, I'm an accountant, so I'm all in for a good deal. So typed his name in and got a full background check about him. So, like I had said, he had told me he was some type of lawyer in, I think he had said like aviation, something like that, under investigation and all that stuff. So none of that was accurate. He was a hairstylist in Philly. He he had a record up at State College because I think he had family up there, and that's why he was visiting. Where he got arrested for terroristic threats.
What?
Uh,
About what?
uh, so I get this report that has, hey, previous arrest history, occupation, all this other stuff that, he didn't disclose to me. And I end up texting him and I say, hey, is there anything that you want to tell me? And I forget if I had already called him out or if he just came out with it. But ultimately, he ended up telling me pretty much the truth from that point on, in the sense that the house that he brought me to was actually his ex's house. And
What?
yeah, and the reason why he was so nervous that night wasn't because the FBI was under investigation, but rather he wasn't sure if his ex, well, and at the time they were dating still,
Oh, of
um,
course.
and potentially engaged. I don't remember that, but like they were in a serious relationship.
Why not?
And so he was just nervous because he was cheating on his partner. And
Um,
so with him cheating on his partner, that was making like he was like at points like uncontrollably shaken. Um, and so that's why that's why he was so nervous that night, was because he was cheating on his partner. That's why he told me a different name. And then that's why he told me a different occupation, all this other stuff. And so everything kind of came to light. There were a few other things that ended up happening that he ended up lying about. So, like, when I came back from my internship, him and so after I confronted him about this, he kind of opened up. I asked him what the terroristic threats were. Apparently, he was in a car and angry at someone and was yelling at them, like, I'm going to kill you, as he was like going to run them over with his car. And that's why he was arrested.
and they got him for terrorism?
It was terroristic threats. That
Oh,
was what,
okay. Okay.
yeah. So not like terror, like he wasn't, looking to bomb anything, but yeah. So then the rest of my internship, like I don't think we talked really too much. Maybe it was on and off, but then once I got back to the Philly area, he kept on kind of hounding me to take me out to dinner so that he could like further explain. And I really was not having it for a good while. And then I kind of like subsided and I was just like, okay, let me just go get like dinner with him. let me see what he has to say. Obviously, my guard's going to be super up and whatever. And at this point, too, there were a few other things that he had lied about and didn't want to take ownership over that ultimately did impact and affect me. That was really kind of the line that I drew. But the last few weeks before you go back to school, there's nothing going on. Again, I was bored. We do a lot of dumb things when we're bored. And I kind of, yeah, just went to that dinner. And the entire time, I keep on telling him, like, I know you're lying to me. Like, you keep lying to me. You don't want to take ownership in anything. And he like didn't want to own up to anything. And that's the biggest thing for me. Like, don't lie to me. I'm gonna find out the answer.
Yeah,
The fact that it came out that you were cheating on your now ex, like that was a huge like no for me. You do it to one person, you could do it to whomever.
right.
And yeah, so after that happened, after a few of the other things, I completely was just like, I don't want anything to do with you. I left that dinner, and at a certain point, he kept on kind of texting back and try to turn things on me, like everything was like my fault and all this stuff. And I'm like, I don't deal with that type of bullshit. Like I kind of laugh at it. I'm very secure in kind of who I am. I know what I'm doing. I know what I don't do. I have no problem taking ownership. I mean, you know me. When I'm being an asshole, I have no problem saying, "Hey, yeah, I was an asshole."
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
like I have no problem saying that. Like, and I don't think he likes being called out on all his lies. And yeah, so
Which is
it's
so
interesting.
funny to me because you gave him the opportunity. You went along with it for quite a while, it seemed, and you allowed him the opportunity to actually come clean about it and kind of start fresh in a way, and he couldn't do it.
Oh yeah, I mean, again, when you're that young, you have a lot more room for people, a longer leash for people to make mistakes, and you give them a lot more grace. At least I did. I feel like a lot of younger people do that as well because you always want to see the better side in someone, and you want to see the potential rather than all of those red flags. But this was just clearly a situation where he didn't tell me the truth about anything. His name, he didn't want to repeatedly, like, he didn't even own up to what his last name was. And he like tripled down on the last name that he was telling me, even though I told him, like, I looked at your ID, I know what your last name is. Like, you
He
can't keep
still
lying.
couldn't. Wow.
Yeah. So, and it was always interesting because after that, I don't think I ever really saw him on the apps or whatnot. And I had been out in DC, or sorry, not in DC, in Philly like a handful of times throughout the years and really never really ran into him or anything like that. So I've always kind of wondered like who he's lying to now. But yeah, it's funny because it's crazy to think about that happened over 10 years ago. And now
Yeah,
it's just
that's a
so cool.
while. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of us who like have all these crazy exes, I think some days we sit here and we think, who are they screwing with right now? And this guy sounds like one of them.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those things when I did the background check, I didn't think anything was going to come up besides maybe his occupation was going to be different or something like that. But when there was like a criminal history, I was like, I felt like Teresa of the Real Housewives in New Jersey, just going through and being like, and what did you do? And what did you do? Excuse me. Like right now, I'm sounding very calm about it, and I'm just like very nonchalant that we were talking about it. The conversation when I was having it with him was very much not nonchalant. I was going off, and I'm like, what are you even doing? And so it was a very interesting type of summer fling, to say the least.
Yeah, sounds like it. Well, I'm glad that you actually ended up leaving that and you didn't stay with him and give him a second chance because it sounds like to me he probably would have cheated on you and kept lying. over and over
Oh,
and over again about simple things.
100%. I mean, there is, he was just lying about everything, didn't want to take ownership. There was, when I did get back from DC, besides the one time we went to dinner, there were a couple of times him and I did hang out. I went to his apartment where, certain things had happened that he didn't want to take responsibility for. And that was kind of like my last straw. Like, it's one thing when I know you're lying to me, but if we have a good connection and we enjoy each other's company, like, what's a little bit of enjoying that for a night type of thing when we both know it's not serious? I'm not going to try to pursue something serious with you.
Yeah.
Just want to have something fun. At that point, you feel like you really didn't feel that connection with many people before, so it kind of feels nice and whatnot. But then a few things had happened where I'm like, it's not even worth it to have that type of enjoyment, because it became a point where it wasn't enjoyable. And I don't think he liked me rejecting him, even though it was a very simple thing. Like, all you have to do is just be honest, which I don't understand why it's so difficult for people. But I've also been told that I'm too honest. So I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is.
It's one extreme to the next. I guess the key is just to be honest.
Right?
But yeah, thanks for coming on and being the co-host for July. We'll be bringing some guests for the listeners this month. We might do a Ask Us Questions episode. We'll see how I'm feeling about it. But yeah, for the listeners, as always, make sure you're subscribing and saving. We're streaming anywhere you can get your podcasts. And make sure you follow us on social media. We are Romance Unraveled on Instagram, Facebook, and have a very sad presence on TikTok right now. It just started. Yeah, until next time.